Hi everyone, and welcome to the Real Happy Hour podcast show. My name is Ola, and with me on the show today is a special guest. Her name is Miss Queen Ade Onibada.
That's so funny.
She's she is queen, or she's the queen. She's a pop culture enthusiast, soft life advocate, producer, journalist, and the internet culture reporter for BuzzFeed. She's been everywhere. She's the connect. She's inspiring in terms of just journalists and producers out here and doing the damn thing.
Thank you. I had to talk about me, but I'll take it. Thank you very much for having me on your podcast. I'm excited.
Thank you very much for coming. So obviously the Real Happy Hour podcast, we talk about films and TV shows. We talk about the relational dynamics in films and TV show. And for today, we are finally going to be talking about a TV show. And the TV show we're talking about...
Do you not usually talk about TV shows on here?
No, because this is just the first of many.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, cool.
And I've been honing it down, TV show and film. But now we're talking about a TV show.
TV show?
Yes, and we're talking about Atlanta. Produced, written by Donald Glover.
Yes, a.k.a. Childish Gambino.
Yes.
It's a very Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde situation there, I maintain. Mad genius... two very different personalities existing in one body, as reflected in the content, might I add, or in my opinion. But yeah.
So let's just start from the end, because I feel like the gap between season 2 and 3 and 4 in my head, if it makes it look like two different shows.
100%.
So that's book 1 and book 2.
Yeah.
Book 1 was sort of the struggle of Paperboy blowing up, and book 2 is Paperboy is blown, and we're seeing his experience and all the experiences of a significant change in their lives. So, what do we think of season 3 and 4?
I definitely felt like season 3 and 4 became less about them as individuals and more about a kind of commentary on blackness, especially in a global setting. So season 3 had that kind of international element where they were kind of popping up everywhere. And also woven into that were kind of these anecdotal or these kind of standalone episodes that had nothing to do with the season. And it also kind of that theme or that style of creating content also kind of traveled on into season 4 with episodes like the black exec at Walt Disney. It's completely independent from the overall story.
Weird, wild story.
But it's one of those ones where it was only Atlanta can get away with saying, yeah, we're going to stop our general storyline and we're going to pick up this and we're going to tell this story. And even that wasn't done in the same way that other episodes were done. Because other episodes,
time.
Yeah, it was acted through. It was actually performance. This one was a bit more documentary. You had real figures, talking heads. There were a lot more documentary techniques employed for that specific episode. But yeah, I think more than anything, categorizing it as book 1, book 2 is super accurate. And I think that second half, that latter half of Atlanta conceptually was less about their individual storylines for me and more about a commentary on blackness through these individuals who represent 4 quite distinct figures.
Very, very right. I completely agree with that. So in terms of what stories from the last 3 seasons, 2 seasons, season 3 and 4, what particular episodes stand out? You've mentioned the documentary on the Disney man, and what other ones stand out for you?
I think, it was the season opener, because for a minute I wasn't sure if I was watching the right show.
Yeah.
The season opener of season 3.
I love that one. That's my favorite episode.
That was powerful and even more heartbreaking when you realize it's based on a true story.
What?
Yeah, so season 3 opener, in essence, is about these 2 white women who adopt a lot of black kids and subsequently drive over a cliff they drive over a bridge into water, killing all of them.
Including the kids. Oh
my God. That was based off a true story, and I think that's what also makes it more harrowing. There was also the episode about reparations that I thought was hilarious. And it felt like such a graduation, because I know Dave Chappelle used to have this skit about black people getting reparations. And in the skit, he kind of made it seem if black people got money, how wasteful they would be, or it was kind of this flagrant show of wealth. if black people were to get reparations, black Americans. So reparations from the people who previously owned their families as slaves. So to some degree, it's like that storyline is like revisited through a much more like well articulated lens, I would say, with that episode of, you know, it's very shoestringish. Like it starts to unravel, like you tug on it and you just start pulling. And I think Donald Glover does that excellently through stories like that one, where it's like the protagonist at the start, he's kind of like independent of this, and this storyline is developing in the background, and then slowly but surely he becomes the center of that storyline, where it's like, oh, your family owned slaves, and now this black woman is running you down because she wants to be paid. And by the end of it, it just becomes like a regular thing. Like, I think they open their pay slips. I need to revisit the episode, and it's kind of like, yeah, reparations tax. Like, it just comes out of their salary, and it's one of those things. You think of the possibilities. It's very Black Mirror-esque.
Yes,
I would say that as well. But again, another episode that I really liked in season 3. Season 4 has just felt quite wholesome and altogether, in terms of bringing it back to where they started. So I've enjoyed that element.
Just picking up from where you said the story sort of has a Black Mirror sort of inspiration behind it, and how it ends particularly, we don't really know if everything we saw was just all a dream, or if,
as the title episode.
I was so disturbed by it, like, because I was like, what is going on?
Do you know what I will say? I feel like Donald Glover writes almost like, to some degree, like in a childlike way, and not to infantilize his writing or say like it's juvenile, not even at all. But like, I remember being in primary school and we would have creative writing assignments, and you would go everywhere and anywhere with your story, and then to wrap it all off, because like time is going, they're about to say to put down your pen, or you just want to finish, you would just end it on some sort of note of, and then he woke up because it was all a dream. Like, everything that happened now, not even that it was disqualified, but it was all within the context of a dream. And, you know, that is the title of the season finale. It's all a dream. And it also harks back to that Biggie lyric, like, it was all a dream. So I think there's like a certain through thread where it's like, it's both fantasy, childhood, hip hop, like tied together. And all of that could happen without disqualifying the entire content of the season. All of that, all of the entire season is all very valid and could happen in some context. But I was reading like a Reddit thread. Like, that's one of my habits. Like, after watching something, or if I'm into something, I want to see what other people are talking about Reddit threads. Yeah. And I think what was interesting was like a lot of the fans kind of started theorizing and kind of leaning into that it's all a dream concept, because there are certain instances that being black in Atlanta, or just being black in general, that whether it's Paperboy or Darius have experienced, where they should die. Like, at one point, Darius is in a car and the driver is drunk. Yeah. She steals a police officer's gun. Yeah, they run over someone. And it's all quite chaotic. But in theory, it's like, if it was in a version of this where it's rooted in reality, somebody would die. Like, there would be a black body on the floor. And similarly with Paperboy, whether it's, you know, the guy that was going around killing people who did this.
Oh, you know, how that episode ends, he says, I guess that's my high school friend who's classmate or high school person is still angry with me. Yeah. So it's not actually the guy that's killing people because of the Soulja Boy video. It's just beef that he has from the past, and I just thought that was so crazy.
Literally, and it's interesting. I feel like Alfred has like this whole obsession with like his mortality, both like as a black man and as an artist.
That is wonderful observation, because he goes through the most.
Yeah.
And Darius has all these weird experiences, but he doesn't go through it like.
Yeah, I feel like because I feel like just from the jump, like Darius entered this season or entered this show, he was always on a kind of on a different plane.
Yes.
Like, if we're talking media tropes, I guess he's meant to be like the stoner, like the Shaggy of the group. Yeah. That's just kind of like there, but you know, he's excellent in his own right, and I think because of the plane that he exists on, he's the perfect conduit for it to all be a dream. Like, it just makes perfect sense. Like, Darius is dreaming. All of this shit ain't even real. Like, is that in Darius's head? But in terms of like Paperboy, as a black man, who can both be interpreted as like big, scary, also in the rap situation, in the rap industry, we've seen so many black artists die this year. At one point, my theory was I thought he was gonna die. I actually thought that is how this ends. Like, it's to make a commentary. Like, they've made a commentary on the young white avatar thing, which is a direct critique of like the music industry, and a lot of the storylines are meant to be a direct, or kind of feel like direct critiques of like life. So in my head, I thought that'd be dark if they killed Paperboy, but at the same time I was like, I wouldn't put it past Donald Glover to kill Paperboy. Like,
thank God he didn't.
Thank God he didn't, because that probably would have made me like traumatized. But like, it felt like we've seen the likes Takeoff, Pop Smoke, Young Dolph, Nipsey Hussle. Like, it's a well kind of like understood principle of this industry. So I thought we were gonna go there, and just in general, I felt like Alfred kept on this line of like mortality, whether it's his longevity as an artist or just his longevity as a man. Like, he went to that artist's funeral. There's that episode where he goes to the funeral of an artist, and it's kind of like a scavenger hunt that's experienced through his music. And he gets there, and it's his wife there, and it's like nobody knew he released the music, and it feels like a foreshadowing. Like, is this going to be my story? Is this how I go? So it was definitely interesting in that aspect.
Yeah, I really get that. I saw that they really explore his insecurities and you know what happens after all the success. And even season 3, when they sort of explore his past with his mom, he really has. I think he's my favorite character on the show. But we can't also forget Zazie Beetz, Vanessa.
Yes,
she was another very interesting character. Like, I really love the end of season 3 where she just sort of she just goes away. The whole of season 3, she's just like on a different journey.
Yeah.
And we don't talk about or see about women who they just want to just sort of leave and live their lives for a second. Like, they need a beat, because she always has the daughter. You know, she just needed a beat, a moment, and we usually see is the man that sort of leaves and, you know, goes to explore whatever. But seeing how she sort of starts as this, you know, really lovely woman, and who is trying to just be on the level as her peers, and then she's unsatisfied or dissatisfied with the world and her relationship with her baby father, and she's just like, okay, I need to just change. And I really enjoyed her journey. Like, what do you think about her?
Yeah, no, I enjoy Zazie as a performer, as an actress. It's so interesting because I've had this conversation with my friends previously, just kind of like saying like, we didn't feel like Donald Glover does well by black women. And there's always just this general criticism of how black men write black women in content, almost as like side characters, or Vanessa's existence is to kind of like lay up or humanize Ern. Yeah. Like, her and their daughter makes Ern a bit more rounded as an individual, because he's a father and he's in love, or he has affection towards somebody. So those moments where Zazie gets to shine definitely make you feel somewhat a bit robbed, because I feel like I can count on one hand like Zazie's moments throughout 4 seasons. Whereas whether it was the episode where they were going to Drake's party, that episode, of course, in season 3, where she's kind of like assumed this French identity and is really entirely. Listen, I was like, what is going on? Is she having a mental breakdown? Like, and she assumes this completely different identity. Or the episode where, you know, she's at Tyler. Oh, I said Tyler Perry. Sorry, Tyler. Mr.
One.
Chocolate. Sorry, not Tyler Perry. Not Tyler Perry.
That episode.
Mr. Chocolate.
Mr. Chocolate. Oh, okay. I love that one. I also want to mention quickly, because I'm sorry I cut you off.
No, it's cool.
I like how there's a lot of Nollywood actors that are sort of in high budget American movies or TV show. Like, I don't know if you know, in that episode there was a Nigerian Nollywood actor in there, in the scene, the very first scene where Lolly Litty, I can't remember her daughter's name. Remember when they were in the house And the abusive man, where Mr. Chocolate kept wanting him to be more abusive to the woman. That's Don Benjamin. Joseph Benjamin, no, sorry.
Yeah.
And he's like a prolific Nigerian actor. And I was like, wow, nice.
We've got the talent. I don't think there's ever been like a lack of talent where Nollywood is concerned. So it's great to see crossovers. Funny enough, like Darius is meant to be Nigerian in the show.
And he highlighted his love for jollof a lot of times.
That was also a very good episode in terms of him taking that white woman to this jollof spot in London, and then coming back, and it's like it's gone bankrupt, or they've bought it and they've gentrified it, and now they're reselling it. Again, an absolute articulate and accurate commentary on life. Like, this is really how this shit goes. It's not that far-fetched. So, and that then flips it, because maybe it's not a dream. Like, moments like that are very much reality. So it kind of like flips between, is it a dream? Is it reality? And moments like that, it's like, no, this is definitely reality. I see it every day. Every day. But yeah, definitely would have loved to have seen more of Zazie. Where she did shine, she absolutely... She really did. Yeah, she really did shine.
Do you think, because from season 1 and 2 to 3, there was a big gap. Do you think that the way their career sort of blew up affected the storyline? Like, if Zazie, for example, didn't sort of blow up, because she's in like Marvel movies or DC movies.
DC, she was in Deadpool.
And even Darius, LaKeith, like, he just became this...
Honestly, and someone was saying it, like, the lineup that they have as far as like on Atlanta, Donald Glover exception, like, to the side, like, those three are pretty much like Hollywood icons in the making. Yep. I am such a huge Brian Tyree Henry fan. Yep. Like, I don't know if you've seen If Beale Street Could Talk. No.
I saw Bullet Train recently.
Oh, but yeah, okay. I don't know about his English accent in Bullet Train.
Yeah, that was a
bit. But like, he's only in If Beale Street Could Talk for a short amount of time, but his performance was the thing that was etched in my mind when I left it. I was like, he gives like this monologue about being in, like, I think his character had just come out of prison or something, and he gives this monologue about like what that experience. And I was just like, give this man every award possible. And LaKeith, of course, like, whether it's Judas and the Black Messiah, Sorry to Bother You, like,
crazy
Get
movie.
Out, like, his roster thus far, The Harder They Fall, like, so far, all hits, no misses, like.
Get Out, I had to watch. I didn't realize it was him.
Oh yeah. It's because he ain't got facial hair.
Like,
I keep telling people, a beard changes everything.
It really does.
A beard changes everything. So it's easy to miss that it's LaKeith at the start. But yeah, no, it's LaKeith. All hits, no misses. He's such an incredible talent. And I think, more than anything, I'm glad they gave themselves the break, because what they did for the second part of the show was beyond anything that you can really comprehend, in the sense of, I don't see a lot of creators doing it the way that they've done it. It's small, it's short, but it's so significant. It's so impactful. Like, those stories hadn't been told before, at least not to my knowledge. That the anecdotal stories that kind of like were sandwiched in between their globe hopping, and just, I give them massive props for being able to do that. And I think only time could have allowed them to do that. And I think there's a lesson in that for creators who feel like they have to constantly feed the beast at a certain time. And by the beast, I mean like the content machinery, like, who feel like I have to put out. And it's like, well, no, you can absolutely take your time.
It definitely changed the culture.
It's shifted. Like, I think it went from being like a quirky black sitcom-ish, or not even a sitcom because there's no laugh track, but it went from like this kind of like quirky, because obviously Insecure and Atlanta were kind of like around the same time, and kind of like seen as like two sides of the same coin. But it went from being that kind of setup to being something that you can't even like put in a box. Like, it can't be categorized, and it's just way more sophisticated than the first half of it. And it's way more meaningful and intentional. Like, it's not by chance that they've sat down in this room and said, we're going to tell this story and this story and this story. It has nothing to do with our major stars, but we're going to tell it anyway. And it doesn't detract or take away from... Like, I didn't feel robbed. Like, I know some people might say, oh, I wish they didn't waste those episodes. Those episodes weren't wasted. they said everything that they needed to say.
I don't know. You really enjoyed the show. I feel like you enjoyed it more than I did, because there were moments in season 4 where I was like, I was angry.
Fair.
And I just feel like it just deviated in so many ways from the idea I had. So yeah, it definitely broke every idea I had of what a black TV show would be. And as much as I have that feeling of, God, I wish it was something else, I appreciate the work that was put into it. Sorry. And I also want to mention something that I noticed. I feel like it's very much a millennial show. Like, even with the guest stars that pop up, like, I feel like from maybe 1983 down to like maybe 2098, like kids from that era that were born around that time would have a deeper appreciation for Atlanta, because they just reference so many things that were important. Like, for example, the Soulja Boy episode. Like, my sister is like 20. When Soulja Boy came out, she was like 28 or something, and I was like 15, 14. And I remember how crazy that was for me. But for her, she didn't care about the dance. She's just like, what is this? And so him in Atlanta, them referencing that crazy wild story of a Soulja Boy dance, and Al also being involved in that moment. I just felt connected to it. Like, oh yeah, this is a show that highlights moments of my life, because I had that same feeling.
No, 100%. I definitely think, like, just in general, across content, we're getting so much better at like documenting history, and archiving history in creative ways as well. Where an episode like this, because when it's all said and done, like, Soulja Boy was one of the first like internet influencers. Yes. Like,
and we were that generation,
and we literally like, this is like, we're talking like the advent of YouTube and viral dances, and that was a template that even years later is still applicable. People are still still wanting to go viral. People are still learning dance moves, and people are blowing on TikTok off of dance routines. So, and Soulja Boy was one of the first people in that space that really connected the dots, where it was like the music, the dance, the internet. And some people might try to trivialize or erase that, because whether it's like, oh, they're not a fan of the music, or they think he's corny, or they think whatever personal opinions that they might have on him, when it's an inalienable fact. And it's like, only someone like Donald Glover would think, let's turn this into a sort of urban myth style boogeyman, someone's coming to get you kind of storyline. It's like, it's very easy to just have a moment where we're like, yeah, Soulja Boy did this, but the idea of like fleshing it out and making it this whole crazy storyline about a murderer, a Soulja Boy style murderer, and you get Soulja Boy to make an appearance, like, that's the pulling power of the show.
Okay, in terms of the relationships now, can we just talk a bit about Ern, Lottie, and Vanessa's relationship? Like, what do you think about their journey from season 1 and the end, where they're back together?
They're back together, yeah. I mean, I guess that felt like it fit into the trope. Certain like classic story devices where it's like, you want them to have a happy ending, right? Or some version of a reconciliation. And, we start and they're kind of like fractured. And then over the course of the 4 seasons, somehow they all come back together. And it's interesting because it's kind of like, okay, how did that reconciliation come about, right? So we see an episode where Ern is in therapy, and he hints at about being angry in terms of him getting kicked out of Princeton, about somebody in his family doing wrong by him, even though he doesn't flesh that out. But then when it's all said and done, there's also this element of like him having a very petty streak. So we see him do this elaborate setup.
Oh my God.
To, in essence, like, embarrass and humiliate.
One of my favorite episodes.
Like, to embarrass and humiliate a woman who basically wouldn't let him board a plane. So from a character development perspective, I'm thinking, is Ern actually a good person? Like, and should Vanessa and Lottie, should they be reconciling? Because, like, in terms of like showing a black man in therapy, right? I guess we expect there to be some sort of growth, but by the end of it, he's kind of like, okay, cool, I don't really need a therapist anymore. And it's like,
that episode was so
and you're like, wait, what? Sir, you're terrible. Like, you've got so much work to do on yourself. he makes a somewhat of a grand gesture as far as telling Vanessa that he wants to be with them when they go camping, and which is great. But I guess from a character growth perspective, I don't think, and then I think this is where sometimes we let certain storylines drop, in the sense of, I don't think any attention or detail was given into outlining properly why they went together in the first place.
Yeah.
How they were co-parenting, how they made that work. Because clearly there must have been an issue there, to the point that Vanessa has a breakdown. Yeah. And she's clearly the primary caregiver. But we don't really get an understanding of what... We don't doubt that he loves Vanessa. We don't doubt that he loves their daughter.
His delivery, he never was empathetic with her. Like, he was just a stubborn man and a proud man. Because thinking about the episode where she went to her sorority's event, and she just wanted him to be a certain way, but he couldn't be outside of himself for her. So I think that might have been a reason why their relationship was the way it was. Is she just expected him to be there for her in certain ways that he just couldn't. He couldn't be anything but earn everywhere.
Well, so for me, I guess in that context, it's like when you look at a reconciliation, you just kind of think, okay, but how? Like, I'm left with more... I get how they reconcile from a storyline perspective. Oh, yeah, they're all back together, happy ever after, blah, blah, blah. But it's like the actual nuts and bolts of reconciliation, especially when we talk about the dynamics between black men and black women.
So thinking about season 4, episode 1, where they go into this parallel universe of exes, and it was such a weird episode, and they're seeing their mistakes sort of over and over again, and then one actually comes back with them, and I actually thought that was the same girl in the very last episode with Darius, but it's not. But it's such a weird story of how the past was something that was haunting and somewhere they never wanted to go back to, but also a way for them to see, see the potential of a future where they don't make the same mistakes from their past.
And it is one of those things, I think that there's that whole saying of a person who doesn't learn from the mistakes is bound to repeat them again. And I think there's something quite avoidant as a generationally. I think Ern and Vanessa are they're representations of a quite avoidant generation of people when it comes to relationships. As far as either not properly addressing things, not properly finishing things, ending things in a definitive way, and just hoping that things will just kind of phase away. I don't know if it's maybe a lack of people not liking confrontation, or just not having the tools and the resources to be able to have meaningful conversations where it's kind of like, hey, listen, I thought I wanted you, but I don't actually want you, but you're not a bad person. I don't know how that exchange goes, but just to some extent, being cleaner about how this definitely felt like an airing of messy laundry. All of their messy laundry was out and about and following them everywhere that they went. Whereas if they probably dealt with it better, it wouldn't be as awkward to bump into your ex multiple times. It's just you're right, yeah.
They're both similar in that.
I definitely think they have a lot of similarities. I definitely think there's a mirroring going on, which also ultimately makes them a pretty decent couple. And the idea of them back together isn't entirely outlandish. There's definitely...
They know each other. They know each other.
They definitely see in each other, things that they recognize. Kindred spirits in that sense. But yeah, I definitely think they both represent... They represent this kind of, avoidant streak in millennial dating. And then I guess the layering of everybody knowing everybody and being around also speaks to the narrowing of the pools that people are dating within. Yeah. Where it's not uncommon to be out and about and bump into 3 girls that you've dated at different points in your life.
I guess that also all that setup of that I don't even know what to call it. I don't know if it's special effects, but it's not realism. It's a TV show about seeing your exes and them sort of traveling through a cupboard in Narnia. It's back to reality. It foreshadows the end where it was all a dream. It was possibly all a dream. And we don't know, because I watched the very last episode again. When it starts, we don't see Judge Judy's body. She stands up and right when we're about to see, Ern walks past the TV.
Yes.
So we don't
We can't say definitively was that entire, is Darius still in a flotation tank? And we can't say for sure.
It's really interesting. What else can I mention again about? Possibly talk about Paperboy a bit. Paperboys. There's some episodes of Paperboy that really stand out for me. There was the episode, obviously, with the white
Young White Avatar, the
yeah, with Young White
YWA.
Avatar. And then there's also the episode with where he performed, and this rich man wanted him to meet his son, and there was this weird long conversation that started off as this boy is there's something going on with this boy.
Yeah, I
And he
think
got
that
dark.
was the Young White Avatar episode. Like that's how he got roped into it. So he performs, and the guy's like, "I'll pay you $1 million to teach my son how to do that." He ends up in the studio, and the kid's like, "I don't know who you are. Like, who are you?" Oh, you're the guy that my dad paid, and he kind of like is like, "Oh, I don't need you." And then he bumps into black rappers who are from the same like legacy that he's from, of the same age, and they're like, "You need to get you one of those. Like, you need to get you a Young White Avatar, because the life cycle of a rapper, unfortunately, isn't as long as it used to be in terms of money, and the business of this industry. Like, in their minds, it's much more profitable to hitch their wagon onto white artists, a young white artist who can do the virality stuff, who can do the big internet following, who still has who can get the relevance and has a bit more steam for them to keep going for a little bit longer." And we see it in real life. Like, it was hilarious to see all the comparisons that people were making, whether it was Usher and Justin Bieber, Akon and Gwen Stefani, T.I. when he signed Iggy Azalea. Like, there's just so many versions of this happening in the industry before our very eyes. Not the hilarity of it all, but I guess the darkness of it all is, before he could really cash in, it's like the kid has an overdose and dies.
Yeah.
Which again is also a very real situation in terms of like substance abuse.
The show definitely talks about a lot of things going on in culture, in life.
I hope Tyler Perry doesn't bump into Childish Gambino, Donald Glover, because if he did, they should fight.
Do you think it's based on reality, that particular episode?
That was definitely a commentary on Tyler Perry's content. The Tyler Perry's, who's the guy that does Blackish? Why can't I remember his name? He does Blackish, Grownish, Mixedish, all the issues.
Yeah,
and he did Black AF for
Netflix.
His name has gone out of my head, but I think it was a commentary on primarily the Tyler Perrys, because obviously Tyler Perry
Kenya Barris.
Obviously Tyler Perry's built an entire infrastructure where he writes, he produces, he does everything. He's all singing, all dancing. He does it all.
Do you watch any of his shows?
No.
Ever? About movies?
Yes, I watched Diary of a Mad Black Woman,
It's
which
best
can
movie.
still get walled up. Like, that's a good film. No one's
Good
gonna
film.
tell me. Yeah, that's a fantastic film. I've also watched Medea's Family Reunion.
It's a good one.
Yeah, I used to be into like Medea's early stage plays, and like Medea related content. Mainly just Diary of a Mad Black Woman and Medea's Family
the
Reunion.
reunion.
I've watched Daddy's Girls. I can do by.
Daddy's Girls.
Yes, I believe he did. Yeah,
that's a good one.
Yeah, with Idris Elba.
Elba and
I can do Bad All by
Girls.
Myself with Taraji P Henson, which famously he paid her a sizable amount, which allowed her to raise her rates moving forward in Hollywood. So it's like, it's one of those ones. It's touch and go to some degree. I think that episode was designed to be more of a critique on the content, which sometimes can feel like a trope bingo, whether it's the scorned Christian woman or the harlot who needs to change her ways, and the black man that's going to come and save her, and somebody's got AIDS. Like, it can always...
Colored Girl movies.
Oh my God, for
so
Colored Girls.
traumatic.
The worst thing I've ever watched. Sorry, I've seen that as... That was
Tyler Perry.
I mean, it was an adaptation of a stage play, so I can't give him all the credit. But ultimately, that traumatized me. That 100% traumatized me. That whole space. But when it's all said and done, there's an audience. Like Childish Gambino, Donald Glover, Vanessa, everyone can say whatever they want to say, but there is an audience enough to build $1 billion empire, enough to allow Tyler Perry to build a studio where black content can be created and black creators can go.
And I think Wakanda was shot there too. Black Panther.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of stuff is shot in Georgia because that's where he's based, and Georgia has really good tax breaks for people who want to film. Will Smith's latest project, Emancipation, with Apple TV, was meant to be filmed in Georgia because of the tax breaks, but they decided not to because there were some really kind of predatorial laws that were making it hard for black people to vote. So as a protest, he was like, we're not going to film in Georgia.
Like a red state now.
Yeah. They were like, we're not going to film in Georgia because you guys are deliberately trying to sideline black voters. But yeah, people can say taste levels differ. Like, we both watched Atlanta. I'm obviously clearly a massive fan and really enjoyed. And you liked it, but not to the same degree as me. And I'm sure if we buckled down, we could find different reasons why I connected with certain things more than you did. But yeah, no, that was definitely about Tyler Perry. And I know he's seen it. And he's got Donald Glover on his little hit list. And he's going to get him. Wait and see. He's going to get him.
It's going to be a TV show and a character like that.
Listen, he's going to write a Donald Glover into one of his TV shows and then kill him off to make a point.
Thank you so much, Ade. We're going to wrap it up.
Sweet.
I have one question. You briefly said earlier that there's a maybe I'll use comma when it comes to Donald writing about black characters or black women, because he's not with a black woman, is he? He's married to a white woman.
Whoop.
And so there is that conversation that happens where we're like, how comfortable are we with someone who isn't? I think Atlanta definitely shows that he's a part of the culture and he knows what is going on, what is happening. But that conversation around should someone who is not fully with a black woman or someone an ethnic minority and having that environment, should they be as influential for the culture when they are not really fully just because they're not with a black woman?
That's such a nuanced layered question. I guess my starting point is I'm not an authority figure on what a creative should and shouldn't put out. That's not my call to make. My call is, as an audience, do I watch or do I not watch? That's where I have power. I don't have power to tell any creative what they can and can't do. Everybody's within right to honor their gifts, honor whatever creativity is within them, whatever they desire to put out. So with that being said, if Donald Glover being with a white woman was so much of an issue for me, I just wouldn't watch Atlanta. I wouldn't tell him he couldn't make it. I just wouldn't watch it. And clearly it's not, because I'm a fan and I watch it. Does it sometimes tickle me in a sense of I do wonder what your white relatives think of some of the commentary that you make. Similar with Jordan Peele, Get Out.
Wait, is he married to a white woman?
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Wow.
He's married to Chelsea Peretti, who was on Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Or is on Brooklyn Nine-Nine, the actress. Oh. Yeah.
Wow.
Right. So it's in that sense, I do wonder what conversations are being had in your space, in their personal space. But I wouldn't call black art necessarily a matter of black protest or black activism. It's just that it is the art created by the black person. What it does and the position that it holds in society is on us to dictate as an audience member. But we can't tell somebody that they can't put it out, is what I'd say.
Because at the end of the day, he is a black man and he's experiencing.
He has black family members, black women in his life.
Experiencing the life of a black
marrying whites, even though don't get me wrong, there are some people who think that they can become other races or enjoy certain privileges by osmosis or by marriage. They think they can do that. Marriage will allow them certain access. And to some degree it doesn't, but it doesn't change the ultimate reality. This is how the world still sees you.
Yeah.
And this is, depending on how you were raised or your worldview, this is art that's true to your experience. And that's all that a creative can be asked to do when it's all said and done.
Thank you very much, Queen Ade.
Thank you for having me.
On the Real Happy Hour podcast. We had lovely mimosas today. And
I finished mine straight away. I was so thirsty.
I should have given you more. I'm sorry. And you're going to have more.
No worries.
And we definitely want you to come back, please. We would definitely appreciate
that's if your audience like it. If they're don't bring that girl back ever again, then we'll just hide the comments and I won't come.
That's impossible. You can't say that to the Queen.
That's so funny.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you all for listening and watching.